I still remember the exact moment I opened that box. It was satin covered, tied with a perfect silver ribbon, sitting neatly on the hotel bed. My name was written on a small ivory tag, Emily. My hands trembled as I reached for it, my chest fluttering with nervous excitement. I told myself, maybe they're finally taking me seriously. Maybe I finally belong. But the second I lifted the lid, my heart sank. Inside wasn't the dusty rose bridesmaid gown the others were wearing. It was black, stiff, cheap. A maid's uniform, complete with white gloves and a frilly apron. At first I thought it was a joke. I let out this awkward little laugh, looking around the room for someone to say, "Surprise!" But no one did. Then I heard the click of heels. Aunt Karen, the bride's mother, walked in with that smug little smile she always wore when she was about to say something cruel. Her eyes swept over me, and without missing a beat, she said, "You should stick to your real talent, sweetheart, cleaning." She leaned in close, the scent of her expensive perfume suffocating, and whispered it again, slower this time. Cleaning. I felt like I'd been slapped. My face burned, my throat tightened, and I could feel my eyes starting to sting. But I didn't let a single tear fall, not in front of her. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't real. It was one of those tight, polite smiles you force when you're holding back everything you actually want to say. I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. It's thoughtful." But inside, I was screaming. Why would she do this? Why now? Why humiliate me in front of everyone? I'd been nothing but kind, supportive. I showed up early, helped organize the stupid seating chart, even ran out to buy emergency hairspray for Sophia the day before. And speaking of Sophia, my cousin, the bride, she stood in the doorway just watching. Her perfect blonde hair curled, makeup flawless, veil pinned in place. She didn't say a word. Her eyes met mine for a moment. I searched them for something. Regret. Sympathy. Anything. But she just looked away, like I was invisible. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the box still in my lap. The fabric of the maid's dress felt rough against my fingertips. I remember the way the room felt suddenly colder. The laughter from the hallway outside, the other bridesmaids getting ready, was muffled, distant, like I wasn't even part of it. I should leave, I thought. Just grab my stuff and go. Who cares if it's her wedding? She clearly doesn't care about me. But then I thought of Grandma. Her fragile smile when she told me how proud she was that I was part of the wedding. How she said, "You're going to look so beautiful walking down that aisle." She didn't have many days left. I didn't want to disappoint her. So I stayed. I folded the dress neatly and closed the box. My heart still ached, but I held my head high as I stepped out into the hallway. Olivia, my best friend and the only reason I hadn't completely lost it, was waiting outside. Her eyes widened the moment she saw my face. "Em, what happened?" I showed her the box. Her mouth dropped open. "They didn't." I nodded. That was the moment everything changed. Because I didn't just want to survive that weekend anymore. I wanted to remember it. I wanted them to remember it. And they would. Because that dress, that moment, that was the last time they'd ever make me feel small. Next time, I'd be the one holding the box, and inside it would be something they'd never forget. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got the call. It was Sophia's voice, sugary sweet and almost too casual. "Hey, Em." "So?" "I've been thinking, and I'd love for you to be a bridesmaid. I mean, what's a wedding without family, right?" My first instinct was shock. We hadn't been close in years. Ever since college, Sophia had become, well, different. Money changed her. Private jets, designer bags, champagne brunches, it all became normal for her. Meanwhile, I was painting in a studio apartment the size of a closet, scraping by on commissions and leftover ramen. Still, I said yes. I wanted to believe it meant something. Maybe she missed me. Maybe, beneath the designer exterior, the cousin I used to play dress-up with was still in there. I told my mom about the call, and her eyes lit up. "That's wonderful, Emily. You'll be stunning up there. Show them what real grace looks like." Even she knew the family politics, though she rarely talked about them. The day I arrived at the estate, it was like stepping into another world. Tall white columns framed the massive front porch. A fountain gurgled beside the driveway, and fairy lights were already being strung through the garden trees. Even in the daylight, everything looked like a movie set. Sophia greeted me at the door with a distant hug, all arms and no warmth. "Oh my God, you made it!" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Aunt Karen was close behind her, dressed in pastel silk and pearls, clutching a champagne flute like it was part of her hand. I could feel them sizing me up the second I walked in. My suitcase had a scuff mark. My sneakers weren't trendy. I'd brought my own snacks in a Ziploc bag because I didn't want to impose. "Emily," Aunt Karen said, her tone dripping with fake affection, "we're just thrilled to have you. You're going to make this weekend so memorable." Looking back, she wasn't lying, just not in the way I thought. Inside, the estate was everything I'd expected. Marble floors, chandeliers, tall arched windows. The bridesmaids were already there, all of them effortlessly beautiful, dressed in silk robes with embroidered names on the back. "Team Bride," one said with a little tiara doodle. I noticed something then. There were only 5 robes and 5 gift boxes stacked on the vanity. But Sophia had 6 bridesmaids. I brushed it off. Maybe mine was somewhere else. Maybe someone forgot. I wasn't going to overthink it, but even then, I felt it. That twinge in my gut. That quiet little voice whispering, "You don't belong here. You're a guest in their world." That night, I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet. I stared at the ceiling and tried to push away the anxiety, the old insecurity that always crept in when I was around this side of the family. I remembered being 13 at Thanksgiving, wearing a secondhand dress, and overhearing Aunt Karen telling my mom, "She's got potential, if only she learned to brush her hair properly." I had smiled through dinner anyway, and now, years later, here I was, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I had earned their respect. Maybe they'd see me not as the poor cousin, not as the help, but as someone who had value, someone worth standing beside them. I didn't know it then, but the weekend ahead would burn those hopes to the ground, because in that house full of money, lies, and secrets, I was about to find something more valuable than their approval. I was about to find the truth, and once I did, there'd be no going back. Not for me, not for Sophia, and definitely not for Aunt Karen. The morning of the rehearsal dinner, everything changed. The sun filtered in through sheer white curtains, and for a few brief seconds, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the silk boxes lined up on the vanity, the pastel chaos of curling irons, lipstick, and chaos. And I remembered. Sophia's wedding. A weekend I'd dreamed of feeling included, wanted, even loved. I walked over to the gift boxes, heart racing a little. My name was finally written in gold script on one of them. Maybe the awkwardness yesterday was just in my head. Maybe everything was about to feel normal. I untied the ribbon and opened it slowly, feeling Olivia peeking over my shoulder with a grin. But when the lid came off, that grin disappeared. Inside, instead of the rose-colored bridesmaid gown I'd seen on the others, there was a stiff black and white outfit. I pulled it out slowly, my fingers catching on the scratchy apron. It wasn't a joke. It was a maid's uniform, not a cute little robe with Team Bride stitched on the back, not a heartfelt letter or a gift bag, just polyester and humiliation. Before I could process it, I heard heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Aunt Karen. She took one look at the outfit dangling from my hand and smirked. "Fitting, isn't it?" she said smoothly, sipping from her mimosa like this was a Tuesday. "You've always been so good with cleaning, Emily. We thought we'd let you do what you do best." She walked right past me without waiting for a response, like she hadn't just taken a knife and twisted it. I froze. My skin went cold. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Why would she do this? What did I ever do to her? Then I turned to Sophia, hoping, begging for some kind of defense. But she just stood there, eyes on her phone, pretending not to notice. My throat burned. I felt Olivia put a hand on my shoulder. Her voice was tight with anger. "You don't have to take this, Em." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear that stupid dress in half, throw it at their feet, and walk out with my dignity intact. But then I thought of Grandma. Her voice in my head, soft, loving, saying, "Show them your strength, baby, not your anger." So I swallowed my pride. Again. I looked Aunt Karen straight in the eyes, forcing a smile even though every muscle in my face ached from the effort. "Thank you," I said, my voice calm. "This is going to be unforgettable." And I meant it. Later that evening, while the rest of the bridesmaids giggled over champagne and practiced their speeches, I wandered the hallways, trying to breathe. That's when I saw something strange. Sophia, in the wine cellar, whispering to someone. At first I thought it was Jake, her fiancé, but it wasn't. It was Nathan, Jake's best man. They were close. Too close. Sophia touched his arm, then his chest. She laughed a little too loud, then leaned in and kissed him. I ducked behind the wall, breath caught in my throat. Did I just see what I think I saw? I backed away, heart racing. Olivia nearly bumped into me in the hallway. "Em, what's wrong?" I grabbed her arm and pointed back toward the stairs. "Sophia, Nathan, she's cheating on Jake." Olivia's eyes widened. "You're sure?" I nodded, still trying to catch my breath. The maid's dress, the humiliation, the silence. Everything suddenly made sense. They thought I was weak, disposable, just the help. But now, I held their biggest secret, and I wasn't going to waste it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the only sound in the room. My thoughts raced like a thunderstorm. Flashes of Aunt Karen's smirk, Sophia's silence, and that kiss in the cellar all crackling through my mind. She really did it. She humiliated me. And she's cheating. And no one knew. No one except me and Olivia. I turned to look at her. She'd fallen asleep in the bed across from mine, one arm dangling off the edge, her breathing soft and steady. Earlier, when I told her everything, she didn't say, "Let it go" or "Don't start drama." She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You know what they say about karma? Maybe it just needs a little help." That's when the idea was born. I whispered into the dark, what if we told everyone without ever saying a word? The next morning, over breakfast, I pitched the plan to Olivia. She leaned in closer with every word, eyes sparkling with adrenaline. "So, we put the photo inside the glasses. Not just any glasses," I said. "Color-changing cups. Like those ones from childhood that change color with temperature." I had seen them online, cups that reveal hidden messages or images when filled with cold water. Harmless, elegant, but absolutely devastating if used right. We'd take the photo Olivia snapped of Sophia and Nathan in the wine cellar, shrink it, and print dozens of tiny scrolls. We'd slide them into the lining of the cups, the part that changes color. When cold liquid hits it, the scroll inside would be revealed. Floating there, crystal clear. No one would see it coming. No dramatic confrontations. No screaming matches. Just slow, painful realization washing over the crowd, one shocked guest at a time. Olivia pulled out her laptop and got to work like a woman on a mission. "We'll need clear inkjet paper, the cups, waterproof scroll wrap, something to chill the drinks." I stared at her, grateful beyond words. "You don't have to do this with me." She shrugged. "Please, I live for chaos. Besides, you deserve a win." We spent that day prepping in secret, ducking in and out of supply stores in town, whispering behind closed doors, avoiding Aunt Karen's icy glares. At one point, Sophia caught me in the hallway and gave a half smile, like nothing had happened. I returned it with a nod. "Smile, sweetheart," I thought. "Tomorrow, everyone sees who you really are." That night, while the rest of the bridal party practiced their choreographed entrance for the reception, Olivia and I assembled everything. Scrolls were sealed. Cups were packed. We froze the drinks just enough to activate the color change at the perfect moment. I kept playing the scene over and over in my head, the guests sipping casually, the sudden pause, the whispers, the gasps, the silence, the scroll floating in the glass like a ghost, haunting, undeniable. I thought about Jake, the groom. He didn't deserve this. He seemed kind, polite, a little clueless maybe, but still. He deserved the truth, and I deserved justice. All my life, I'd been the one people looked over, the poor cousin, the one who didn't belong. Now I had power. Real, tangible, secret power. This wasn't just about the dress anymore. It was about respect, about showing them that kindness isn't weakness, and that just because someone is quiet doesn't mean they're blind. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that wedding as the help, but I'd leave as the storm they never saw coming. The day of the wedding arrived like a fairy tale. The sky was cloudless, the air smelled like blooming gardenias, and every surface of the estate shimmered with polished perfection. Photographers buzzed around, capturing laughter and lace, while classical music drifted from hidden speakers. And I was in the kitchen, holding a tray of drinks. Aunt Karen made sure I wasn't part of the bridal photos. She even snidely remarked, "We'll need someone to handle the serving, right?" While the other bridesmaids giggled, swirling champagne in crystal flutes. I nodded and took the tray. They didn't know what was coming. I walked calmly through the garden, the late afternoon sun casting golden light over the reception tables. Each place setting looked like it had been styled for a magazine cover: white roses, gold-rimmed china, personalized menus. And then there was me, in my tailored maid uniform, offering guests a special cooling mocktail to kick off the celebration. Each glass was chilled just enough, cold enough to trigger the reaction. Inside every translucent cup, tucked between the double walls of plastic, was the truth. A photograph of Sophia and Nathan locked in that kiss. The image was printed faintly in blue, invisible until the temperature dropped. Once the liquid touched it, it bloomed like ink in water. I watched as the first guest took a sip, then another. At first, nothing. Just idle chatter, clinking glasses, laughter. And then it started. A woman in a green dress stared at her cup, eyebrows knitting. She tilted it in the light, her face pale. Her husband leaned over, squinting. More people looked down. One by one, silence fell like dominoes. The whispers began, soft at first, then sharp and panicked. "Is that? Wait, who is? Oh my God, is that Sophia?" I kept moving, tray after tray, row after row. Then I heard the most satisfying sound of my life, the clink of a glass shattering. I turned just in time to see Jake, the groom, standing frozen. A cup slipped from his hand, blue liquid spreading like a crime scene on the white linen tablecloth. He was staring at his glass like it had betrayed him. His jaw clenched. His face had gone completely white. Sophia appeared from behind the archway of peonies, radiant in her gown, glowing with confidence, until she saw the sea of blue cups and the horrified faces around her. The color drained from her cheeks, too. She tried to laugh. "What's going on?" Jake didn't say a word. He just held up the cup. She walked closer, squinting. Then realization hit. Her eyes darted from the cup to the crowd, then to me. I held her gaze. No smile, no apology, just truth. She took a step back. "This is fake. It's someone photoshopped." Jake's voice cut her off. "It's not fake. I know that shirt. I wore that tie. That was yesterday." His voice cracked slightly, and for a second, I actually felt a pang of pity. But then I remembered how she stood there, saying nothing while I was humiliated, how she let her mother shame me, how she lied to Jake's face. Aunt Karen stormed over, grabbing my arm. "You little rat, you ruined everything." I calmly stepped away, lifting the edge of my skirt just slightly in a mock curtsy. Actually, I think I just cleaned up. Her face twisted with rage, but she couldn't say a word, because it was done. The truth was out, and for once in my life, I wasn't the one shrinking in the corner. I was the storm in the center of their perfect little day. The wedding ended in chaos. Guests whispered as they gathered their things, eyes flicking between Sophia, Jake, and the now infamous blue cups still littered across the reception tables. The music had stopped. The cake was never cut. The dance floor stayed empty. I watched from the garden steps, sipping water from my own cup. My hands were steady, my heart calmer than I expected. For once, I wasn't the mess they were cleaning up. Jake walked past me with his tie half undone, his eyes distant. He paused for a moment, looked at me, and said quietly, "Thank you." I didn't say anything, just gave him a small nod. He deserved the truth. And deep down, I think he knew it was never about revenge. It was about respect. For him. For me. Sophia never came to me. Not that day, not even afterward. But later that night, when most of the guests had cleared out and the fairy lights were still glowing over the abandoned reception, Olivia and I sat in the back of my car with the windows down, eating stale chips and replaying the moment everything unraveled. She tossed a handful into her mouth and laughed. "You really served the tea, literally." I smiled, finally letting the tension melt out of my shoulders. "Do you think I went too far?" She looked at me, serious now. "Number you went just far enough. They used shame as a weapon. You just gave it back, decorated in ribbon." It stuck with me, because for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I didn't feel like the poor cousin or the girl they could mock without consequences. I felt powerful. Not because I embarrassed them, but because I stood up for myself without becoming like them. Word spread fast. By morning, there were already posts on social media. Someone had filmed Jake's reaction. The blue cup affair trended on TikTok under the hashtag #JewWeddingExposed. I didn't post anything, but people recognized me anyway. And the most unexpected thing? Support. Strangers DM'd me saying they'd gone through similar things. Being treated like an outsider by their own family, being humiliated, underestimated. One girl wrote, "I watched that video and cried. I thought I was the only one." Another said, "You made me want to stand up for myself." That hit different. A few weeks later, Olivia and I turned the whole experience into something real. We launched an online shop, custom color-changing mugs and cups with empowering messages hidden inside. The first one we made together said, "She cleaned up, and they never saw her coming." It sold out in 24 hours. Funny how things flip, huh? Sophia moved out of state after the scandal. Aunt Karen's social circle iced her out, too. Turns out, no one wants a wedding planner whose own daughter became a meme. I heard she tried to claim I doctored the photos. But by then, it didn't matter. The truth had its own wings. As for me, I moved out of my tiny apartment, got a new studio with sunlight and real plants that didn't die every week. I paint again, not to survive, but to feel. And sometimes, when I get orders from clients who share stories about standing up for themselves, I think about that dress, that moment, that box, and I smile. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't ruining someone else's day. It's finally stepping into your own. And just like that, the maid became the main character. If you've ever been underestimated, remember, your silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Thanks for watching. Like if you felt that. Comment your favorite moment. Subscribe if you're done letting people walk all over you.